but we're Dharma bums, which means it's not very rigid and strict. We've gotten a little more rigid as it's evolved over the last 3+ years, you know, because people come here very seriously as a place to practice. And when we sat around, you know, thinking about how we were going to do this thing, when we opened this place up, we just opened the door and we put a couple classes in. We didn't like sit down and say, all right, what are we going to do? We knew we wanted people to study and practice Buddhism, but we didn't have some master plan. We had no website for 9 months. We still have no sign, you know, so we're always evolving and learning, you know, what works. And the master has awoken.
That Buddhism teaches?
You know, they talk about different stages in meditation, but my understanding is just there's enlightenment. You know, I think there's moments of it or glimpses of it throughout a day, you know, where you can say, like I said, some people call it that aha moment, where it's just brief little, you know, where there's no ego and it's just, you're in between. Suzuki calls it in between thoughts, beyond thinking. But then as soon as you try to recognize, oh, I'm in between thoughts or I'm beyond thinking, you are once again thinking and labeling. Mm-hmm. And so therefore it's gone. So you're just there or not.
So to me, it sounds like you're saying that state of enlightenment is being happy, content, but not knowing exactly why. Is that right?
Again, you know, people ask all the time, what is enlightenment? You know, you can't really put it into words. It's not something you really put into words, but and this opens up a whole nother direction, but Buddhism talks about, you know, a idea of no self, that there is no I, that you all say, you know, I am Jeff. This is Venerable Walter, as we call him. He is the resident master here at the Dharma Bum Temple, who 2 years ago actually taught he did the Empty Bowl Sutra at midnight on New Year's. So yes, he's the master and the Dharma protector all in one. He loves attention. Yes, you're just going to have so much fun, aren't you? He likes the camera too. Yeah, enlightenment. I don't know. I can't. I just, you know, what is enlightenment? I don't know. You know, I mean, there's probably 200 books down there that you could open up and there'll be a chapter called Enlightenment. You can read what it is. And then whatever that means for you is what it is. But for me to, you know, in the Zen tradition, as they call the passing of, you know, the lineage of Zen, the Buddha Sutra, held up a flower. And Mahakashyapa, who was, you know, considered the kind of the first, you know, lineage holder or the passing of the Zen, he just held up a flower, and that was the teaching. There were no words that were expressed. It was just the holding of a flower, and kind of a mind-to-mind transmission with that. It's just, yeah. To them, it's unknown. You know, totally unknown. Yeah.
But you can't, you don't, people don't normally lump Judaism together with Christianity, do they?
I don't think so, no. And it's interesting because the master that I had in Taiwan, you know, knowing that I was there, in essence, to learn about Buddhism, to practice Buddhism, to see how it's practiced culturally, but to then come back here and share the basic teachings of Buddhism with Westerners, I asked Master Xingyun very specifically, what is your view on Westerners who approach Buddhism and who engage in Buddhism? And his answer very directly was, it doesn't matter if you pay homage to, you know, or say Namo Amitofo or Amitabha Buddha, if you pay homage and bow or respects to this Buddha, or if you pay homage and bow to Jesus Christ. This was his answer, was that who you are bowing to and who you are paying your respects to and who you are honoring is not what's important. What's important is the intention that's in your mind and in your heart and why you're doing it. That's what's important. And so that was a very beautiful answer for me when I came back here. That even with this place, the Dharma Bum Temple, and when I'm sharing Buddhism and I'm talking about Buddhism, the people who come here, they're not Buddhist. There's only maybe, you know, a couple of us who are Buddhist, you know. myself, Maggie, my fiance, who she was raised in the Buddhist culture. But the people who come here, they're Christian or they're Catholic or they're Jewish or they're Muslim or they're already in their religion. And they view Buddhism very much as a philosophical way to add to their already existing way of life. Yeah.
I want to talk about your childhood.
Yeah.
You had said how you were brought up in a very happy, healthy, balanced, loving, nurturing family.
Yeah.
And so this was all before you started getting into the daily grind of working a 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
making lots of money, and yet even before you had gotten into the working world, it said in your interview with Melissa that
Mm-hmm.
there was still sadness and depression growing up. And so I was curious where that might have come from. Do you reflect on that?
That's a lot of where this, the search for how to get the mind at peace comes from. When I was 16, when I was 17, there was anger. I got into lots of fights, and there was depression, all this kind of stuff. And when I look back on it now, and and I work at a school called the Monarch School, and I work with homeless kids, and I work with a lot of places where you look at their family life. And as an outsider, you can say, well, maybe it makes sense to see why they're in so much trouble, why they're angry, or why they're depressed, right? And then you look at how I was raised. 2 parents, they've been married, 40 years. I think I saw them fight twice in my entire life, right? Older brothers, we all, for the most part, you fight like, brothers do as kids growing up. But for the most part, we all got along as kids. But when I was 16, I was angry, I was depressed. And there was the world just didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense at all. And it took a long time until I looked back and I realized that the only thing that was making me angry and depressed was my own mind. It wasn't anything around me. It was nothing around me. It was my own mind and my own reaction to the world around me. My own frustrations, my own disappointments in the way people were to each other, and just certain things that I didn't understand and didn't make sense is what caused my anger, my reaction to those things. And so when I was 20 and I was in college, and I took a Chinese civilization class because my brother Joel said, take Chinese Civ 174, it's an easy A. And so I said, okay, I'm in college trying to get out. So I took this class. And we had to read a book called Intro to Zen by D.T. Suzuki. And that was really that changed my world forever. I read this book, and for the first time, the anger and depression and sadness that I had at that 16, 17-year-old age, now reading this book, it made perfect sense to me that it really all was my mind. And this was at 20. And so that was my first introduction to Buddhism. And that was where for many years I would read books and I would, talk about it, and I thought it was this cool thing, but I really didn't know much about it other than just reading it and trying to figure out how to make this Zen stuff fit into my life.
So how does one, because you said that this temple is all about practicing, is it Zen or just, is that how you would define it, or meditation? Here?
Well, the word Zen actually means meditation. It's a Japanese word. Zen, Chinese is Chan. Before that, it's jnana, or knowledge, gnosis. And when it eventually makes its way to English, into meditation, right? And this place, even though around here, my view and my lens, so to speak, and my perspective tends to fall in line with what I read in Zen books, and that's where my mind kind of resonates with. This place is open to all forms of Buddhist practice. So even though that's my personal, egotistical, preference, we built this place to be a bridge for Westerners. And so when people come in here, they'll be exposed to Zen, which is a part of a Mahayana tradition, the Theravada tradition, the Vajrayana tradition. And so we're opening it up to all forms of Buddhism, really as just that starting point to where people can learn about it. Yeah.
Can you speak specifics though? Because I really resonate with Zen Buddhism.
Yeah.
And the culture and the mindset. And I'm wondering, hearing you talk, I'm wondering if I'm still in that same state of, just reading about it but not practicing it. So